This is the meeting of October 1st. We'll note that all commissioners are present. First item for your consideration is the order of business. Are there any changes to the order of business? Hearing none, would there be a motion to approve the order of business?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries. Second item then is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda you wish to discuss?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have
Second.
And we have the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson? Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. We're going to go then to item 4A, which is the 2013 budget. This would be the second reading and final passage of the budget ordinance, which is 1484. And we'll invite Mrs. Johnson to the podium to give her comments regarding the budget.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. There are 4 changes to the budget from first reading. They include $60,000 for a monitoring system to detect radon and $42,000 for portable fencing around the Baylor Building, both in our solid waste department, a $2,500 addition to the fire department for ladder testing, and a $1,500 addition to the police department for additional security on the MDTs and the patrol cars. Some of the highlights of the 2013 budget include, in the general fund, our property tax revenue is increased $200,000 for new construction coming on the tax roll, but no increase on existing properties. In our sales tax funds, we're budgeting a 10% increase in our 1% and 0.5% sales taxes over the 35% increase that we expect in 2012, a 7.5% increase in hospitality tax, and a 15% increase in our occupancy tax. In our enterprise funds, we're budgeting an 8% increase in revenues due to growth in both residential and commercial accounts. In our expenses, there's a 3% cost of living adjustment to our pay scale, 14 additional staff positions, a transfer of $4.1 million from our 0.5% sales tax towards the construction of the Public Works Building, and we are anticipating a 10-cent increase in water costs from the Southwest Water Authority. In our capital plan, our biggest items in both dollars and size are the wastewater treatment plant, the Public Works Building, and the Public Safety Center. In total, our general fund budget increased 16% over 2012's budget, with 8% coming from additional staff requests, 3% from payroll, and 5% from capital requests. Our budget for 2013 shows $146,000 use of cash in our general fund due to capital requests. Our enterprise funds do not require use of cash, as they are building cash reserves for large one-time capital costs that include the wastewater treatment plant and anticipated landfill upgrades from our master plan. Those are some of the highlights of the 2013 budget. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Any comments or questions by commissioners? Since this is the second reading of 1484, we would invite public comment. Anybody that wishes to comment regarding the 2013 budget may do so now. Just step to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. Anybody wish to comment? All right, there's no one from the public that provides any comment. Anything else by city staff or city commissioners? Would there be a motion regarding the second reading and final passage of Ordinance 1484?
I'll make a motion to pass Ordinance 1484.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. That'll take us to item B, the 2013 fee schedule resolution, and Mrs. Johnson will present that also.
Thank you. Our rate increases that we are proposing for 2013 include our pet license moving from lifetime to annual, our armory rental fees from $250 to $400 per day, our concrete and excavation permits are increasing, and we have added a re-inspection fee. Our center and group daycare facility inspections have increased from $25 to $35. Our DVD and CD copies have increased to $20. Our fingerprinting has increased to $10. And our cemetery fees have increased based on the new excavation contract. In our water and sewer...
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Just while we're on cemetery fees, I think this is first we've seen them, you know, we knew we had bid a new contract, but it looks, they went up significantly.
They did go up significantly. That is one of the reasons we'll have the 2012 amendment as well, because the contract actually goes into effect October 1st.
Right. But can you or any other city manager just maybe add a little more explanation to
I'd have to ask
why
Mr.
they
Swan.
increased so much?
Were you involved in the contract? Sorry.
Yeah, with respect to that, Mayor, I'm going to go to the fee on that one there. I know that the contract, there was an increase with it. We only had one bidder with respect to the cemetery fees, and I am presuming on this one here that the fees that were based upon that is just the increase that was noted with the upcoming contract.
Correct.
And those fees were not out, if I recall right, they were not out of touch with Mandan and Bismarck that we checked with. And then we also notified, I had Denny, and he had spoken to the funeral homes, and it was my understanding there was no objection with respect to that as well. So, I don't know if that answers your question. That's the best I can give you.
The
at this point.
contractor didn't offer any explanation on, I mean, this isn't this contractor's held this contract for quite some time. Did he offer any explanation on why his bid jumped so much?
The only one that I heard from Denny with respect to that was this increased cost that he had for that. Based upon that being the sole bidder that we had for it, as far as I know, we didn't go in any further explanation with respect to his fees.
Okay, thank you.
In our utility fees, our water and sewer connection fees were recalculated based on cost plus 20%. Our water usage rates increased 16 cents per 1,000 gallons. Our sewer usage rate increased 15 cents per 1,000 gallons. Our sewer base rate increased for commercial accounts based on meter size. And our residential solid waste collection rate increased from $11.67 per month to $12.50 per month. The average utility bill should see an increase of approximately $3.16 per month. Some additional increases at our landfill include household waste increased from $35 to $40 per ton, and the oil field waste increased from $70 to $185 per ton, and we've also added a fee for non-compliant loads. Both the cemetery fees and the oil field waste and non-compliant loads fees are both being requested as an amendment to 2012, and that is because those fees, as we mentioned, the contracts are effective October 1st for cemeteries, and the oil field, they want to start accepting oil field waste again, starting as soon as this fee goes into effect.
Okay, well, we really have two items stacked on here. The first is item B, which is the 2013 fee schedule resolution, and that is resolution number what, Mr. Colling?
Mr. President, this will be Resolution 50-2012.
Okay. So are there any comments or questions regarding the 2013 fee schedule? If you're satisfied with the fees that are on there, would there be a motion to approve Resolution 50-2012?
I will move.
We have the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
I would like to ask one question, and Mrs. Johnson, maybe you said this and I missed it, but there are a couple of the water connection fees and sewer connection fees that have decreased. Why would we do that at this time?
We did base it all on the cost plus 20%. So if those costs were lower, we lowered them.
Okay,
Some sizes did see some extreme increases based on cost.
yeah, I see that too. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have the motion, the second, other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. Mrs. Johnson also commented on item C, which is a 2012 fee schedule amendment resolution, and I believe your comments were that this resolution just would take the cemetery fees and the fees relating to the oil field waste that we're planning for 2013 and make them effective immediately here in 2012. And I'm assuming that is resolution number 51?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments regarding the amendment to the 2012 fee schedule? If not, would there be a motion to approve Resolution 51-2012?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. The next item then, item D, is the Pinecrest addition annexation, and Mr. Colling will introduce that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, this proposed resolution provides for the annexation of approximately 435 acres of property on the northwest side of current city limits. Property is located immediately north of the recently approved Westridge First Edition in the northwest corner of Interstate Exit 59. The proponent of the annexation is in the audience tonight and is available for any questions that you may have regarding that annexation. If you do approve this annexation, we will publish the resolution and provide notice to landowners, and we would have another meeting to hear any written protest to that annexation in approximately the middle of November. But, Mr. President, if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. Any comments or questions? Either for Mr. Colling or the individuals representing the annexed property?
Mr. President,
Mr. Jackson?
you know, some present at the evening tonight don't realize that we met for a couple hours this afternoon in a joint meeting with Planning and Zoning to go through a further step of our comprehensive plan and all that that entails, much of it being land use. I think that this property is pretty logical for future development, but I'm not sure when. And we saw today, this afternoon, how much more information was given to us, and I expect that we've all absorbed that yet, and we'll have a lot more information to come. My thought is that this should perhaps wait a little bit. A couple months, whatever it may take, for us all to really absorb where we are and where we're going with this. It's 450 acres. It's a lot of ground.
Mr. Jackson, I think based on the information we've seen today, but only in the previous meetings, I would tend to agree with that.
Other comments? We have some individuals here representing this property. Would you like to comment at all?
Ryan Bachman, Meyer Real Estate Group. For us to get pushed back, I guess at this point, we've been kind of working with some of the people for our retail corridor in that area, as well as some of the R3 territory that we've looked at laying out, as well as some of the other uses. Always, I guess, working towards the dates that we've been kind of waiting to get the Westridge through and everything like that. If we were to be pushed back a month or two at this point, would be a pretty major blow to some of the retailers and some of the larger projects that we're looking at bringing in on that end, that are basically in a kind of a standby mode as far as going to contract and so on and so forth until we get annexed. It's tough for us to sell or do anything as far as getting those projects moving forward until we can get our annexation slammed through. So that would be, I guess, the biggest detriment for us as far as taking a time out on this at this point. And once again, I guess I wasn't privy to what you guys just went through, just kind of still going off of the proposed comp plans that we're working with. Is we are on all 3 or 4 versions, I guess, that there has been. So it's just kind of, this would be a bit of a curveball.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Bachman, how would you feel if we approve that northeast quarter tonight? The quarter that, I think it's the northeast quarter of the section that has what I expect is your retail proposal in it.
Some of it's tied, one of the retailers in particular that we're working with is actually tied to another land use out there that we're working with too. So I guess, without getting into too much detail, I guess we're trying to do the whole thing because it's basically going to be several different pieces of that puzzle are going to be tied to one or more of our major retailers.
And this annexation fell into any one of our growth scenarios, is that correct? As we looked at each of the different maps, this one fell in regardless of which direction we went, or Ed, do you remember?
That is correct, Commissioner Olmans. The annexation that's proposed tonight would have been in all 3 of the growth scenarios. Now, the information that we received today came about with some additional information with infrastructure cost and the rest. You know, as part of your deliberation, you could look at it and say, okay, we could, if you wanted to, we could favorably look upon an annexation. That being said, that doesn't guarantee that we're in favor of platting and providing that until we've got more thorough information with respect to, the infrastructure and the total cost of that. Because I think there's an inference that, okay, I've got it annexed, I should be able to come back now with platting and rezoning for that.
Sure. And I guess to be fair to you, Brian, one of the discussions that we had today is a lot of the development that we've done so far has been infilling, and we've been very fortunate in our developments that we haven't been writing out big checks to get the infrastructure to bring these developments online. And so we have had the infrastructure near or close so that it's been pretty seamless as far as the city goes. But now that we are moving out into this neck of the woods, there's going to be some bottom line costs to the city to bring these properties online because the infrastructure isn't there. And I would say the missing piece of our puzzle moving forward is how do we fund those infrastructure costs? Do we look at the developer? Do we look at specials? Do we look at, any number of financing tools to do that? And that is our big stumbling block on this development, is how to bring it into, our water and sewer system and how to bring it online because it's uncharted territory.
I understand. I guess my question to that would be is, we're not the first person out there. We're 10 feet past Roars. So it's really, to some degree, you're already in that neck of the woods. I guess I'd really understand the need for that if we were kind of the pioneering effort out there. So I guess my question becomes is if we're going to if we know we're going to develop that corridor as, part of our reliever route, if it's going to be, part of our new retail corridor in town, that retail corridor is going to require housing. Every one of those retailers that we talk to want to know about housetops. We can't do the retail without the housing. You've got to have both. So my question becomes, even with looking at the Westridge, Westridge doesn't have a lot of housetops in it. I mean, Westridge is, for the most part, a commercial development with some R3 in it, but there's no R1, as far as I know, unless something's changed, in Westridge development. So to me, part of making that entire corridor a success and getting it off the ground and getting it moving quickly to help everyone is going to be for us to come in, get in housetops, get in retailers, and do the whole thing. But I think you got to have that whole area to develop if you're going to make it do anything but trickle.
What is your timeline for improving the whole 435 acres?
We'll start on 3 of the areas. Our goal would be to have preliminary plat in for the December meetings. We would like to have that into the city by October 17th. And then basically we would have Phase 1 and 1A and probably Phase 2 that we would do next year. All of that would be residential, commercial, and retail would all be
How many
going.
phases are you looking at?
There's probably 4. is what I'm
24
looking at
phases?
there. Yeah, probably 4.
I'm not sure, Mr. Jackson. I see a lot to be gained by delaying the annexation. I think in a sense we're going this direction, whether you go there today or you wait a while. I still think the end result's the same. We're going to go there. We're reacting a little bit to sticker shock, and we didn't get all the numbers this afternoon. But when you look out over roughly a 10-year planning horizon, and we're starting to get the build-out numbers for not only all the transportation projects, most of which have been known for quite some time, but now we're getting the test results, the study results on the water and sewer infrastructure and where we're at capacity or near capacity. You total all this together, and in round numbers over the next 10 years, it's looking upwards of $600 million, and we still may not have accounted for all the projects. And a good portion of that had to do with probably a pretty major sewer trunk that would go around the northern and western part of the city and come all the way around to the south and connect to the new wastewater treatment facility. So we're going to wrestle with some big dollar projects, which I think we all knew were coming. I'm not like me, I think we didn't know the number might be quite as big as what we're looking at. And of course, we're going to get quite a bit of aid from the North Dakota Department of Transportation on the traffic ones. Hopefully, we're going to receive quite a bit of impact funding to help with these other projects. But that's, there's no guarantees there. So I think that's what we're reacting to. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to end up annexing this property, whether you do it now or you do it 60 days from now. Why inconvenience the developer by delaying 60 days or so?
Well, and I think to get the most bang for our buck, we invested a substantial amount of money to be able to bring the Roars development in this section into the city and online with our infrastructure too. And we should be looking at getting the biggest return for that invested dollars that we made to get the water and sewer up in that area.
Right. We partnered with Roars to go underneath the interstate. I'm assuming that the Myers projects are going to pick up all or a major portion of the city's investment to get under the interstate. I'm not quite sure if you guys have figured out just how to allocate, I think it was our $400,000 investment yet, but I'm sure you've been working on it and thinking about it.
You know, I think Mr. Botman's point about the infrastructure is valid. I think that we've made the commitment north of the interstate, and that pretty much covers the contribution that the property we're talking about tonight is going to make, I think. I'm more concerned, this urban growth area that we tentatively have approved on paper is going to accommodate 50,000 people, I think.
Commissioner Jackson, with respect to your question, these boundaries actually include every one of the scenarios, so that's more allocation than we initially done. So if we were looking at 41 to 45, potentially 50,000 is probably a fair assumption.
I'm not ready to annex enough ground to accommodate 50,000 people. Not in a minute. So we're going to have to choose which. And I don't know which ground we're not going to approve right now. I couldn't tell you which ones I'd be in favor of and which ones I wouldn't be. So I think it's worth being cautious.
What does this change the direction that we gave KLJ this afternoon and our office by annexing this in?
Well, I don't think it changes that
They're
direction.
to come back on the 26th, I believe it is.
They're working on the entire growth area, growth management area, regardless of what we annex. Correct? Am I saying that right?
That is correct.
It's all included in there.
Now, I don't know if this helps out the commission as part of your deliberation or not, but just because you have an area annexed into the city, there's an assumption, yes, you're going to have urban services. We could make a call that an area, based upon the broad brush of this, that there's no guarantee, there's not an entitlement that you will get that urban land use that you're going for. So, with respect to Commissioner Jackson's comment, in the future down the road, if you decided that there was a portion of the Myers that you weren't comfortable with based upon the cost of infrastructure and the rest, then that area can go from more urban in nature to bigger lots that we would do in a rural. I mean, there's not a guarantee that you're going to get that. That's kind of where we've been going, but now we've broadened that urban service area, so I don't think you could have that assumption anymore that within 10 years that you're going to have those urban services for all these lots that within that. So I don't know if that provides any ease of mind, that they still have to go through the platting process and the rezoning process. And in the future, if you look at it based upon more information as part of KLJ's, part of the comp plan, you decide that the area that they're proposing, let's say on the far northwestern corner, they had shown that as residential and they wanted to do it as, let's say, R1 single family, you may say, no, we have to put a new pump station or some major improvement just to get to that area like was represented today. Therefore, that area needs to stay rural in nature. I don't know if that provides any of ease in mind.
What is your anticipated density for that area?
It's not real heavy. We did it very similar to what we did in Sundance. We've got some R2, we've got some R3, not a lot of R3. I think we had proposed up to 5 buildings.
How about your R1 residential lots? Are they standard size?
Yeah, they're pretty standard. They're going to be probably average in that 10,000, 11,000 square foot range.
Brian, what do you think projected cost for homes in the subdivision would be?
In this subdivision, we looked at this being a little bit more of a starter or a first-time home buyer. We actually have an area on the, what would that be, that northwestern area that we looked at as a company-wide. We looked at coming up with a program to do rent-to-own housing for people, because the one thing that we've seen in Dickinson is it's not a shortage of people coming in, there is a shortage of people that can get home loans. So we looked at trying to come up with some affordable housing options for people coming into town and also ways for us to help finance them or give them some bridge loans as they come in, repair credit, things like that. So this was kind of the area of town with the shopping centers and with the office complexes and stuff like that. That's all tentatively planned to go out there. That it kind of made sense that this was going to be a little bit more of, probably a little bit more affordable based housing. There, I'm sure there'll be some areas when you look at what we've kind of planned that will lend themselves to a little bit more the mid or the uppers, but for the bulk of it's going to be more towards that.
Of your commercial area, how much has been committed to? Can you tell us?
I can't really say that any of it is on paper because we're simply not annexed. No one's going to sign a piece of paper that says they're coming into something that they're not annexed to yet.
With your rent-to-own program, the premise there is to help them build credit, and part of that rent is then applied to their down payment so that they
Correct.
can move into one of the other homes in that area too.
Correct. It's
And-
basically, we wanted to try to commit kind of a feeder system as people come in, because we have so many people coming to this area with credit that's less than sterling, and they may have a blip somewhere on their credit history that's kept them from that. So that's one of the items that we've identified as a company, a need that we think we can fill, that we can try to help people get into town, actually build some equity rather than just paying, you know, all rent where they're not making any headway.
Okay. And part of, you know, the scenario that we're hearing, especially with some of the big box stores and the retailers that are wanting to come in, their biggest fear is having employees and number of employees. And certainly if every house that we have on the market is in that 200,000 or higher, you can't have a couple working at Menards and being able to afford a place to live. And so part of the premise, I guess, that you're looking at is to build affordable housing, but also build housing that's available immediately to employees that would fit in that kind of income range.
Exactly.
And then as they gain more experience or time in the market, that they have the ability to move
And that's
up.
why I had said it's, for us to do just the retail corridor wouldn't work, because that's basically some of the stuff we're working with some of these retailers and commercial folks with, is how do we house our staff? Because even if they can find apartments, they're looking online and finding apartments that are, you know, $2,000 and $3,000 a month, and you can't pay retail wages to people and afford those kind of rents. So it's a bit of a problem-solving exercise to get some of these people in. So to answer your question, we're getting a great reception from a great many people, but there's still a problem-solving piece that has to go with it, because, like I said, the number one, and I'm sure Jim Rohrs would tell you the same thing, they all want to know where the housetops are coming from, how many are going to be here, when is it going to come? Because, you know, they're taking a little bit of a step out there when you realize you look at an aerial of that area and it's, you know, 3 houses within a square mile of these areas. I mean, it's a little bit of green space for them. So they need to kind of know what that is. So when we kind of came up with a program of how we could help house some of their staff, that went a long ways.
How many R1 lots do you have planned for that?
Off the top of my head, I think there's about 400.
How many?
About 400.
And speak to...
Excuse me, we'll have to suspend the discussion here because we have 3 timetable items, so I apologize for doing that, but let's go ahead and suspend this. Mr. Bachman, if you can hang around, we'll go through our 3 timetable items and then come back. At 5 o'clock, we have a public hearing regarding the utility easement vacation, and Mr. Soren, you're going to present this?
Yes, thank you, President Johnson. We did receive a utility easement vacation request for the utility easement between lots 2 and 3, Block 10 of Northridge Estates. The owner of those lots is planning to turn those into approximately 7,500 square foot lots, creating a 5th lot, and needs the utility easement vacated in order to do that. He has received all the signed off signatures from all the utility companies, verifying that it's okay to vacate the easement, and we're recommending approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soren. Since this is a public hearing, we'll declare the public hearing open. Anybody wishing to comment regarding this issue may do so now. Just step to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. So anybody from the public? There's no one from the public that wishes to comment, so we'll declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Colling, is there a resolution number here?
Mr. President, this will be Resolution 52-2012.
52, okay. Any comments or questions by city commissioners?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 52-212.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Oltmans?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. The 505 timetable item is a rezone issue, and this is an ordinance, and we'd be considering the first reading of the ordinance, and Mr. Colling will introduce it.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. The ordinance before you is a rezoning ordinance for Sundance Village and Coves. The ordinance amends the city zoning map to change these areas, Sundance Village and Sundance Coves, from agricultural zoning to a PUD zoning. The ordinance is conditioned upon the developer entering into the appropriate development agreement with the city for this PUD, as well as submitting the plans for the PUD to Mr. Corton's office. This ordinance would be Ordinance 1486, should you choose to approve it, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Colling. You have quite a bit of information in your packet regarding this item. Are there any comments or questions by commissioners? Not, is there anybody from the public that would like to comment regarding proposed ordinance 1486? If so, you come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. Anybody from the public? There's no one from the public, so is there a motion regarding first reading of 1486?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have the motion to approve and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay. I see by the clocks on the wall, it's about 5:10, and we do have a 5:10 timetable item. This is an item regarding development impact fees. Mr. Soren, can you introduce this?
Yes, President Johnson. This is an application request for development impact fees from ELGI LLC, which is the Saks Motor Group and their new store they're building up just south of 21st Street. The impact fees are for the construction of 20th Street West, which runs on the south side of their property. The project is estimated to be approximately a total of $468,936, which includes water, sewer, and street improvements for that stretch, which would make them eligible for 50% of that amount, or $234,000 approximately. We have sent out notices to the property owners to the south about the impact fees. We have received protest letters back from both of the property owners that are on the south side of the street. With that being said, because of the lot size that Saks has, they still do have more than 50% of the property affected by the improvements. So they would meet our impact fee ordinance as far as ownership for this project. I do believe that one of the property owners is in the audience. If you have any questions regarding that or anything regarding the project, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Soren. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Soren? the basis on which we allocate the costs is that strictly according to city rules, or is this dictated also by the state?
Well, our ordinance was written to help us comply with the state, but how we allocate, the ordinance does allow us to pay 50% or change that amount. As far as the, whether you allocate by front footage, square footage, or average assessment, those are dictated to us by the state on how we would actually assess the amount that gets assessed back. But the amount that we use for impact fees is at our discretion, up to the 50%.
Right, okay. But in terms of how it gets allocated to the affected properties?
We have those three methods that is by century code.
Okay, the state gives us three methods, and by ordinance, did we adopt a specific method, or do you do it on a per-project basis?
Per project basis. Where we've seen differences is where you're mixing, say, commercial or R3 development with R2 development with single-family development. It does oftentimes require us to look at things different to try to come together with a fair assessment. Like with the state addition expansions, they've got the R3 along the business loop, then R2, and then single-family all as one project. And to try and do equal assessment for each of those becomes difficult because of the large lot for the R3. They would typically not be assessed as much as, say, a single-family home would be if we didn't look at different options. So in that case, we used a portion of all three of those assessments for that development.
Okay. Well, at this time, if there are members present that wish to comment regarding this impact fee issue, you may do so now. Just come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments.
Mr. President, Commissioners, I'm Dave Kitson. I had Diamond Acres, and I don't own the property right now, but as we had an agreement with Sachs Motor that Sachs owned both sides of the street at one time, and I had made an agreement with Sachs Motors that if they wanted to move their property down against mine and pay for the street, that would be okay. And so my question is, did they give a signed deal for me that said that they could do this or send it in? Do you know?
No, we haven't seen anything with relation to you.
Yes, I never agreed to pay for any of this because our agreement was that they would pay for the whole street. And so I sold that property to the two other landowners that you received notes from that are against this. And I really can't say much about it other than the fact that the agreement went that way. And I wouldn't have been dumb enough to give up my side of the street and then pay for half of it, just so they could have the deal on both sides. And I'm quite not sure. I didn't even know who this Dad just asked who that company was, because I didn't even know who it was, because it kind of surprised me, but I kind of heard through the vine that they were coming in here for impacts. And I tried to get a hold of them and contact them and ask them what was going on. But I never signed off on that land. I never signed the agreement to put that street in there either, if I remember right. So.
Mr. Kitts, excuse me, I didn't quite hear the last part. Did you say you have a written agreement or a signed agreement?
I never had a signed agreement, and they never had one either to.
It was a
just
verbal
a
understanding?
verbal agreement that they did, so I'm a little disappointed in what happened here.
So had that street always been planned, or were the two streets that were running up, were they going to dead end at the Sachs Motor property? And there would have only been access to the Sachs Motor property from the front, or how did this street come about?
20th Street has always been a platted street. And Mr. Kitson's right. When we actually sold the land to Sachs Motor, And when we sold it to them, we actually sold the lots to them on the south side of 20th Street as well, because of the issue of the development of the street. So they bought those. And what he's referring to, when they replatted, they kind of turned the 20th Street south to make their lot one big lot instead of being split by the street, which now has taken the property that Mr. Kitson owned at one point and put it adjacent to 20th Street.
Because his lots, that, even though you don't have them anymore, that you sold,
They-
wouldn't have butted up against the street.
Right, no, I didn't have anything against that street at one time. And when they moved the street down, that put it against mine, so our agreement was, I would let them move down there against mine so that they could put all of their land in their lot. And the agreement was that was fine, they would pay, and I said, so you will pay for the street? And they said, yes, we'll take care of the street. Well, then I find out that now we have a issue here, that they're
Right.
going after impact, so I've already bought the two, if you guys would like to see, I bought, there's 3 lots on that corner edge that we had to turn up on, and I paid them for that, and bought them from them, and then I sold them to this other party. Now I come back and we've got impact fees again, or they want us to pay for the other half of the street, and I'm thinking this is not a great deal.
Right.
So, like I said, I don't have any paperwork that's signed on this, so,
But we know the history, that the street would have been here, and that would have divided Saks Motors' lot up. And so the street was moved for their benefit, so they could have one continuous lot to work with.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question. $79,892, that was what they were assessing one lot?
That's probably 2 lots. I'd have to go back and look at it. Basically, it's not the assessment. We had to come up with an approximate number that we thought would be assessed when the project was completed and we'd go forward. And so what I did in those letters is I took 50% of the costs and split that out to all the lots on the south side. That's how I initiated the conversation or the letter with the homeowners there that this was on the table for tonight's meeting.
Mr. Soren,
Because it says per lot.
those lots in Block 3 will all be assessed again, I would presume, when Sims and Second are paved?
Those are already paved, those streets are, in fact, this street is
Well,
done.
Sims-
I don't
Yeah.
believe the developer is asking for impact fees for that. They are working to develop those on their own. So yes, the properties will be paying for those streets, but it won't be through this program.
Well, what I was going to say is I've seen before in a situation like this where the side street, essentially 20th is the side street for Block 3, and that assessment for the south half of that would go down to the middle of the block. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And with a decreasing assessment for that side street. Is that an option?
It certainly could be, yes. We'd have to go back and re-establish the district and send notices out for all those lots. But it's certainly an option we could do.
Otherwise, those corner lots get hit really heavy.
This street is already built, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so are the 2 connecting streets, too. You can already drive up and around. And the lots that are being assessed these fees, the driveways are going on the existing streets that were already there, not this new one that's being built.
the north-south streets were paid by, yes, the ones I had agreement, I had paid on those, I paid for some of those streets already, so
Right.
they were taken care of. The only one I was supposed to, was Saks was supposed to take care of this one, and I
Because the other
wasn't supposed
streets
to
have
pay.
all been completed and are ready for houses to be built on those
Okay.
lots with the driveways facing the streets that you built. This street was built for Saks Motors' convenience and moved so that they could get the full benefit of the lot. They happened to connect with the streets that you built on the properties that you sold,
Right,
is the bigger
yes.
story.
There's no driveways, I think, coming off that street, or ever will be. that I know of. They'll all come off the or the north-south ones.
Did you have something on the drawings you wanted to show us?
All I was just, is the only thing I brought these in for is to show you the existing street and what it is now. Just if anybody wanted to know what it looked like. I have the drawings for both ways. If
Okay.
anybody's interested in looking at them.
Okay, well, let's see if there's anybody else here that wants to speak to this issue. If so, you can come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments.
Mr. President, Commissioners, Mike Mouse, I'm appearing on behalf of Saks, or LG. There were discussions between Mr. Kitson and Saks about this road, but there were never any agreements. And frankly, Saks thought at some point someone would come back to them and talk to them about an agreement, and no agreement's been entered into. They did benefit from the relocation of the road, but they're not the only one that's benefited from the relocation of the road. So they're asking for the impact fees. They would not refuse to talk to Mr. Kitson yet or someone regarding that agreement, but they've never been approached about the agreement, and they never agreed that they would pay for all of it. They agreed that the road benefited them and they should have some partial responsibility for that. That's the position of LG or Saks Motor. Any questions?
At what percentage? Because...
Well, that should be discussed between Mr. Kitson and Saks. That should be worked out, or should have been. I don't know what percentage. I mean, the road, it benefits them to move it further south, but the road being there benefits the people to the south also. Benefits Saks by making one big lot. But they don't necessarily need that access down on the south side more than anybody else does. So it benefits all the parties on both sides of that road. But what percentage, I mean, that's a difficult question. That's why Saks Motor thought at some point someone's going to come back to them and say, okay, here's what we propose, here's what we think you should do. That's never happened.
The entrance to the new Saks Motor, will it be off of 20th Street or off of 21st? Their main entrance.
21st.
The main entrance, isn't there a frontage road along there?
Pardon me?
I think there's, I don't know, is there a frontage road along 21st?
Well, I'm just, well, is the main entrance to the new facility, will that be off of 21st, or?
I can't tell you for
You
sure.
can't, you don't know.
President Johnson,
Mr.
it
Song?
will be off at 21st.
Their main entrance
Yeah,
off 21st.
part of the replat that they did vacated the frontage road in front of their property, and the entrance that was there, which was an existing entrance to that frontage road, is now going to be a main entrance for them. They do have access off at 20th Street as well.
But that's not their main entrance. They're, in a sense, their storefront.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Mouse, excuse me, but do you, do you have a suggestion on how to proceed here? I mean, you mentioned that, I think you mentioned that there's room for the existing parties maybe to work something out here.
I believe there is, yes. I don't have a suggestion of how that should be split. Haven't put that much thought into it, but I don't know if it's appropriate to table this thing until the parties meet or something like that, but there is room for discussion on that point.
It involves quite a bit of money. I mean,
Other people's money too,
Other
and that's
people's
the
money,
other,
right.
that's the big thing about this, is that it's one thing if we were spending money that was in the city budget and that we were paying for, but we're allocating other people's money that'll have to pay the specials on this. And so I definitely think we need to go back to the table before we'd make a decision.
Well, we always do that.
Well, I know we always do that,
Do we have
but
a crunch here for getting something on the tax rolls?
No, we're too late for this anyway. We had to have it in by about the 15th of September, I think, is when we had to get it to Special Assessment Commission.
I think we should approve the impact fees, but the ELGI should pay all of them, and then they should work it out later.
Mr. Colling, as I understand it, the way this is drawn up, though, now, if we approve the resolution that's presented to us, it would be a done deal on those properties to the south. They would be then assessed the impact fees when we go forward and do special assessments next time around.
That's correct, Mr. President, yes. What this application, well, let me back up a little bit. What this application would do is allow the city to expend the money up to $600,000 for the completion of this street. You can establish that district now and approve funding up to that amount. The allocation of that funding would have to come back before the Special Assessment Commission in order to determine exactly how those assessments would be allocated.
Mr. Colleen, your opinion here, if we tabled this and didn't approve anything, would it give both parties a little more incentive to try to work something out between them?
I certainly think if there's room for negotiation, then that negotiation probably should happen before you would establish this district and approve funding for that road.
And the other side of that is the street is already paved. It's not going to impede, the business coming in and finishing up. It is already in place. It's boiling down to the dollar figure, and if we are going to allow some fees to help offset the cost. But the street is in. I drove up there last night, so it's not like it's a unfinished road that's going to, impede the business from starting up and completing their project. It's a dollar game now to figure out how to allocate it.
I have a question then, though. If, with the impact fees, they would all be to ELGI, right? Then how do they separate so that if they do come to an agreement and the other two lots get assessed, do they benefit from that also?
President Johnson, if I may.
Please.
If the district is approved tonight, it includes the Saks lot and the 4 lots on the south side of 20th. How the fee gets spread would be determined based on a benefit once it goes to Special Assessment Commission next year and try to make it as fair as possible. It is possible that that commission could charge based on a square footage, for example, which would make the Saks Motors lot a lot larger, maybe more responsible of those impact fees than, say, the lots on the south side. The notice that I sent out in no way was setting that number that they are going to be assessed at. It's trying to give them an idea of what it could be. But until the project's done, that doesn't get set. If there's some interest in trying to increase the improvement district and add more lots to it, then you have to table it. We'd have to go and look at that based on a comment that Mr. Jackson made and add more lots to the district before it got improved if we wanted the ability to assess, say, more of the lots to the south. But right now, the only ones that could potentially be assessed would be Saks and those 4 lots on the south side of the street. And ELIG would be responsible to pay 50% up front. The city would reimburse 50% of the cost, and that's what would get spread back on the assessment.
Well, I'm thinking it would be okay to table this and encourage both parties represented here tonight to get together to try work something out. Wouldn't the Special Assessment Commission be apt to, if they have an understanding, follow that understanding, accept that understanding, and say this is the way the dollars are going to be allocated?
Yes, they would. However, through that process, there's public hearings and inputs from the property owners on that split out that might impact their decisions as to how they looked at that assessment.
Which we have. That's part of the process.
That's part of
You're going to
the-
have that anyway.
Yeah, that's part of that process once the project's completed and we move forward with the assessment.
We did this, I forget the name of the development on the east side of the city. where we asked both parties to get together, and, you know, I know they did meet, but at the end of the day, they couldn't reach an agreement, and then we just did what we thought was right anyway. But I'd like to see them get together and try to work something out first, and if they can't, they can't, and we'll just have to make a decision. But I don't see time-wise, it hurts us to delay this till the next meeting. I mean, is there an issue that we're missing?
From our standpoint, I don't think so. They've taken the risk, put the street in up front, and probably have expended the money, so that's why there's an urgency on their part. But they knew that before, they had started that process before they even initiated the application, so I don't see any reason we couldn't delay it 2 weeks.
Mr. Mouse and Mr. Kitson, do you think you could take advantage of 2 more weeks and write a, that'd be fine?
Sounds good.
We have one wise woman up here and 4 average guys. I don't know if, you know, we'd rather you work it out on your own. Okay, well then, Mr. Colling, do we need to formally table this, or can we just the minutes reflect that we chose to defer this to the October 15th meeting?
Mr. President, I think you can let your minutes reflect that no action was taken on the matter, and we'll bring it up on the agenda whenever we hear back from the parties.
Are the rest of you okay with this then?
Yep.
All right. Well, good. Mr. Bachman, if you want to come back, we'll go right back to item D, the Pinecrest addition annexation, and Mr. Oltmans, I know I interrupted you to go to the timetable. Do you remember where you were and what you were going to say?
Aaron, can you roll the tape back? I don't know.
Don't know? Well, we'll just throw it open to all the commissioners. Was there other comments or questions that you may have had?
Mr. President, it's the magnitude of this for me. It's 3/4 of land. We're going to get a request for 2 more quarters of annexation soon. So again, I think we just have to ask ourselves, are we going to say yes to all of it? Or is this the place we make the call? Now, Mr. Croton brings up a good point, suggesting that we go ahead and annex it, but then in the future possibly deny platting or rezoning, whichever, and use that point in the process to make those decisions.
I think that's a tool that you have available at any time. We've always had that when we have annexed a property. It didn't necessarily mean that everything was going to get platted and approved from that point, but it was at least the starting point of the whole process. We've always had that as a tool.
Well, I think if we're concerned about that we're reaching a point where maybe we don't need to annex more land until, you know, a more distant point in time, I think we need to be telling our developers earlier in the process. And if we've given them fair notice and they go ahead anyway and go to the point of bringing it to the commission's attention, then we turn them down. They've kind of had their fair notice. I sometimes get these parcels of land confused, but Mr. Bachman, is this, within this land, is this the land where we've also discussed with your company the possibility of land being reserved for a school?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've met with the park board about that as well.
Right, you know, and it's, I know they're having discussions with city staff, park board, and the school district about taking some of the land that would be reserved for the park district and dedicate it towards a school. and I've been party to one or two of those discussions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're talking upwards of 25, 30 acres in there,
It's 26 acres.
26 acres. So, you know, the school district's trying to be proactive and look down the road, and I know one of the possible uses for this 26 acres could be a middle school.
Correct.
You know, and so that's kind of a big deal to the school district, too.
It is, and I think that when you look back at the housing plan, where you have that, you know, intermediate to starting houses and being able to move up the ladder, if you're looking at building a school and you're looking at building a retail sector in this community, a first-year teacher doesn't make enough to go out and buy a $200,000 or $300,000 house. They have to start somewhere. If you're adding another school, you're not filling it all with existing tenured teachers. You're going to have an influx of new teachers into that school. When you're looking at building a new retail community, again, you're going to have an influx of new retail employees, and you need that stepping stone for each of those. And, you know, people maybe my age or older that can afford a house that's on the market, I'm not making any new kids for the schools either. And so, again, you have to have a housing sector that is going to be pro-young families and pro-young families moving into the community and being able to not only start, but able to build their careers and build into, you know, filling those houses too.
Mr. President, I would be okay with Mr. Caton's recommendation, but I also feel that Commissioner Jackson, you know, we're at that critical point also that we've been talking about. And I agree with what the mayor is saying also. I just can't remember what the heck it was now, but I knew I was agreeing with it.
We have
You
plenty
don't
of
have to go any further, just as long as you
Yeah,
agree with the mayor.
yeah,
I mean,
I
that's-
disagree with you, but, you know, your point being that we have to educate these developers out there as to what we went through today, what we see, and just get them updated. I think he's correct in saying that, you know, you kind of came in before, you know, and then all of a sudden we're given these numbers and now it's a big surprise to you. So, you know, your point being that I think we have to get out to these developers and let them know where we're at right now.
And this is the side of Dickinson that we discussed that does have enough water pressure, for sure. Nope.
No, President Johnson, Ms. Dukart, the northwest corner of this property does pose some issues for us from the water pressure side, yeah. And I did share that document with Mr. Bachman, so he is aware of that as well. And if I could add, while I have the mic, just anecdotally, we did bid land as a city on the southwest side of town. We had 100 acres, and in that bid document, it did say that if we couldn't come to an agreement on a purchase agreement within a certain period of time, that transaction wouldn't take place, and we did not come to that purchase agreement. So that 100 acres will not transfer to the high bidder. That will stay within the confines of the city of Dickinson as ownership. So we can choose to do something else down the road, but just for it may be pertinent to this conversation that that's 100 acres of land that is not going to be developed, at least in the near future.
So like the mayor said, though, as long as you know, and if we approve this and you don't get city water and city sewer, or if you get turned down the line, as long as you know that, I think that takes us off the hook, too.
I don't think, that isn't what the mayor was saying, but
What was it?
there, no. What I was talking about was future annexations. You know, they start early and informally with discussions with city staff generally. And if the city staff can let the developer know if there's an appetite or if there's not an appetite on behalf of the city or the city commission for annexations. They can let them know early in the process before they put a whole lot of time and dollars into it. But what I think I heard today regarding sewer was that we need to put a main trunk in across the top of this northwest corner or this westerly section all the way around the west side and connecting to the wastewater treatment plant. And I think that's what Mr. Berg was talking about 2 weeks ago when he talked about combining one of the pump stations that would be on that main trunk with a pump station that we had already planned for the wastewater treatment facility, putting that together. But we need that trunk if we're going to not only service what's taking place on the northwest side of town, but it would also collect from the northern section of town too, and relieve sending sewage over to the northeast and then down to the wastewater treatment plant. So I mean, by putting that in, it helps an area greater than just this development or the Roars development or anything else over the northwest. I think that's something, you know, we are going to do whether you annex this or not.
So then, of course, you would
Yeah.
want to get the most return on your investment, and if you're going to have to put that in anyways, why not bring as much as you can on in that area?
And utilize it. Now, I think, without giving this, you know, a whole lot of thought yet, I guess, but my first initial reaction would be that particular project, I think, would qualify for impact funds, and in terms of funding it, I would, from the city's perspective, try to get as much state impact dollars for that as possible, even to the extent of 100% of it. Because again, I see that kind of benefiting the whole community also, and being brought on by trying to respond as a community to the oil impact issues, you know. And we may have some water issues that are going to be similar to this, but I don't see, to me, that's kind of like the reliever route, you know, a transportation route. You know, we're getting the state to, we're certainly working towards getting the state to fund the whole cost of the reliever route, or at least the vast, vast majority of it. I would do the same thing with, you know, some of these trunk lines for sewer.
Well, and to your point, Mayor, of giving developers, you know, ample notice of here's our intention and this is off the grid, you know, this development has always been on our grid. In every map that we have looked at, this was part of our master plan in scenario 1, 2, or 3, whichever one we accepted. This development was a common denominator in all of those maps. So it would seem surprising at this point to have included it in all of our master planning and then get to the point of approval and go, well, I guess not.
I think we've said in every meeting that we've talked about the urban growth boundary that doesn't mean we'll annex.
Right.
It's been said in every meeting. As far as the school goes, if we need to annex that ground, let's do it. Let's do it. It's the 3/4 that bothers me. Again, the infrastructure isn't the issue, because you're all right. We have to do the infrastructure anyway. But enough said.
Other comments? This, Mr. Colling, what's the resolution number on this one?
Mr. President, this is Resolution 53-2012.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to approve Resolution 53-212.
I'll second it.
Okay, you have the motion, the second. There's still ample time for further discussion. Anything else that you'd like to comment on regarding this issue?
The only thing I would say, Mr. President, if we're really talking about giving would-be developers our intentions on annexations, then we have some decisions to make. We better do that, and so that Mr. Curtin and others can do that much earlier than when it gets to this board. I'm not sure how practical that is. Maybe we can.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Other comments? Okay, we have the motion and the second. We'll vote then. Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
No.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We have another annexation, item E, South Park First Edition. Mr. Colling.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. This annexation encompasses a much smaller area of property. This resolution calls for the annexation of a tract property located south of the intersection of State Avenue South and 8th Street Southwest. A final plat for this parcel was previously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Commission, and the owner and developer is intending to construct an R3 housing unit within this parcel. Annexation is required for this unit in order to access city services for the property. And for your record keeping, this would be Resolution 54-2012. Mr. President?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Colling. Is there anyone in the audience here regarding this item? Okay. You've heard Mr. Colling's introduction. Any comments or questions by city commissioners? Any comments by city staff? Is there a motion regarding Resolution 54?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Brings us to item F. This is the, regarding the downtown development, and Mr. Kessel will introduce this item.
Thank you, President Johnson. Commission, what you have before you is a plan to engage a professional to help us create a downtown plan. As we all know, a healthy downtown serves as the core of any successful community. And the City Commission has previously arranged our Renaissance Zone so that it mirrors our downtown area, or at least closely. Our Renaissance Zone has gone underutilized over the years. It was established many years ago. In fact, it has gone so underutilized in some areas that we've not had a Renaissance project, which actually helped us when we redrew our boundaries to accommodate a project just a few short months ago. Mr. Reddick, who has an award-winning architect out of the Seattle, Washington area, has proposed a plan that would help us create such a downtown plan. It would be viewed as a companion document to our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is looking at a great many things, but it's not looking specifically at our downtown area. What Mr. Reddick has proposed is working with our community, especially our downtown land and business owners, to come up with a vision that is acceptable to all, create some modeling and some marketing materials that will help bring consensus to a workable downtown plan. He has worked with the city of Minot. He has developed these types of materials for the city of Minot. It's called Imagine Minot. Those products are available to us. We have viewed those, and we've met with Mr. Reddick on several occasions. The plan that you have before you is simply a cost basis plan. He is going to be invested in our community and would like to see growth occur, especially in our downtown area. What I have before you is his plan and a recommendation that we engage Mr. Reddick with a professional services agreement. The amount would be $17,500.
Out of our general fund?
We could, we certainly could use our general fund, but I think we could also use some of our sales tax dollars to support this plan as well. Or actually, you could use, sorry, it's escaping me, our hospitality tax fund might work.
We have a downtown improvement district.
We do, and we've been using those dollars for making parking improvements and others, and we generally, I think we have about $20,000 in that parking, or in that downtown improvement district, so.
I just want to add that I'm on the steering committee for the Vision West, and that is one topic that all 4 cities agreed that everybody in Richardson, Belfield, Southard, and Dickinson needs to work on, is the Renaissance plan.
I don't know if you went to the websites and looked at examples of his work, and Mr. Kessel, I hate to correct you because I might be wrong, but I think he's from Portland rather than Seattle.
You're right, he's from Portland. The Pearl District is one of his
Right.
uses. I apologize for that.
But Mr. Kessel and I had an opportunity to meet with him for a couple of hours in Bismarck here a few weeks ago, and he brought along some of his materials that he's developed for Minot, and I thought they were quite good, and he had, I thought, some very nice ideas on how to develop the downtown areas. One of the things that I was struck by was, in some cases, he's used underground parking and actually built a park on top of where the parking is, and you don't even know you have underground parking there. I mean, he's done, looks like some nice creative things, and the modeling that he used in Minot was between, I think, 3D drawing and some actual photographs, and marrying that technology together, he could show you, here's what it looks like today, if you do this, here's what it'll look like tomorrow, and for those people like me who have trouble looking at two-dimensional drawings and seeing a three-dimensional picture, that modeling is really pretty valuable. But I guess I was impressed by what he was doing, and personally, I think it'd be worth the $17,000, $18,000 investment. In a sense, get kind of a vision of what the downtown could be, whether or not that's what it actually turns out to be, but at least what it could be. And I think that's what he's talking about doing.
President Johnson, that's exactly what he's talking about doing. He's already inventoried land and potential project sites. He's pretty excited. And one of the things that captured my attention, as you mentioned about the Minot plan, is the parking and the ability to accommodate parking in general behind businesses, so that it is not, you don't see it necessarily. And he takes advantage of topography, as President Johnson has mentioned, so that you can save your green space, which in a downtown area is so sought after, but yet continue to utilize it for parking.
Yeah, we've had discussions before about, the parking lot that sits between the Brick House and the old Ivanhoe building, and generally our discussions have been, well, either or. It can be a park or it can be a parking lot. Well, he showed us ways that, well, you can have it both ways. It could be parking and a park also. Mr. Catan, did you have a chance to meet him?
Yes.
What were your impressions?
I was impressed. I looked through the material. He went through his Imagine Minot presentation. I thought that was very effective. I do have a little bit of an urban design background, being in California, and that was something that was really emphasized, is the connectivity, the relationships that you have, with the built environment and, with open space when you're dealing in urban areas. And I thought what he presented was very spot on. I was very impressed with the blending in of the pedestrian, how a downtown should function as a pedestrian corridor, but also integrating the necessary required parking that would be there. So he blended into two, like you've mentioned, and so did Mr. Kessel as well. But he did it in a very functional, aesthetic form. Instead of just making a parking lot, he integrated that with buildings on the exterior or landscaping so that you soften those appearances. You accomplish both goals. But also that it tremendously benefits the downtown, and it functions as a downtown should. So I thought that his past performance and past projects are well fitting of what we're trying to do within our city, and I would strongly encourage that we move forward with this. This is exactly what I would be looking at as an implementation tool after our comprehensive plan is done. So jump-starting this early is great. The downtown is underutilized. It has a ton of potential, and I think that this is the right guy to start that visioning process for us to determine what a theme would be downtown and to move forward with renovation as well.
Okay. Other comments? My suggestion would be if you agree and would agree to retain him, that we let Mrs. Johnson figure out where the best way or which fund is best to use in funding this. And since we're so close to the end of the year, we could probably just, when we have, the year-end budget amendment resolution, she could just include that in the budget amendment resolution. We'll let her figure that out? Would there be a motion regarding this proposal?
I make the motion to approve the funding for the Renaissance Downtown Development Plan.
I'll second.
We have the motion and the second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Mr. Kessel, you want to continue with your reports?
Thank you. I have one final report this evening, and that's the monthly Human Resources Report compiled by HR Coordinator Shelley Nominuk. We do have 6.5 open positions, 3 police officers, 1 senior police officer, 1.5 in our street department, and 1 in solid waste. We have been able to do some hiring, which obviously is always very nice to fill some positions, and that list is in front of you. We hired 2 police officers, a fire inspector, a communications specialist, a code enforcement officer, a street maintenance operator, and a firefighter. So we continue to be very, very busy in the hiring side. With the approval of the 2013 budget, we'll actively start hiring for some of those positions as well, since some will take a little longer than others. So unless there's questions, that would conclude my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. Any comments or questions for the city administrator? Okay, we'll move to tab 5, Public Safety. Mr. Sivak, I know you have a proclamation here. It would be great if you would also read it.
Mayor, that's not fair. You had the microphone before I did. Mayor Johnson and Commissioners, Mayor Johnson is correct. October 7 to 13 begins Fire Prevention Week for 2012, and the proclamation, Mayor's proclamation for the City of Dickinson, whereas the City of Dickinson is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our city, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire, and whereas home fires killed more than 2,600 people in the United States in 2010, according to the latest research from the nonprofit National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to more than 369,000 home fires. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire, and whereas only 1/3 of Americans have both developed and practiced a home fire escape plan, whereas almost 3/4 of Americans do have an escape plan, however, less than half have actually practiced it, and whereas 1/3 of American households who made one and estimate they thought they would have at least 6 minutes before a fire in their home would become life-threatening, the time available is often less. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half, and whereas the City of Dickinson's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, and whereas the City of Dickinson's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes, and whereas the 2012 Fire Prevention Week theme, Have Two Ways Out, effectively serves to remind us to develop and practice a home fire escape plan during Fire Prevention Week and year-round. Therefore, I, Dennis Johnson, Mayor of Dickinson, do hereby proclaim October 7 to 13, 2012 as Fire Prevention Week, and I urge all the people of Dickinson to practice their home fire escape plan during Fire Prevention Week 2012 and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the City of Dickinson's Fire and Emergency Services.
Thank you, Chief Seebuck. Are there any objections to me signing that proclamation? Okay, well, I think we're all in favor of encouraging fire safety in our community.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. And just one other thing concerning the activities of Fire Prevention Week. We'd like everyone to know that Tuesday, October 9th, from 5 p.m. until dusk, at College Park, which is on the 1400 block of 2nd Street West by the Badlands Activity Center, the fire department will have our fire apparatus available to give rides to adults and to children. Children must have a parent or a guardian present. It's a great way for our responders to meet the community, and it's been received very, very well in the past, and it's a great way for the citizens to meet our firefighters and to take a close look at the apparatus. Thank you.
Thank you, and you'll bring me the proclamation to sign then?
I will. You don't have it? I will get it to you, absolutely.
All right, well, we get it electronically now. So.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right.
President Johnson, if I may?
Yeah.
This doesn't happen very often, but today, I believe, is Chief Seebuck's 30th year with the City of Dickinson. It's his employment anniversary today, and I want to point that out because it doesn't happen that much anymore, and he's tolerated at least the last 4 years with me, but I just want to say congratulations on 30 years, and thank you for choosing the City of Dickinson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, tab 6, Public Works and Planning. There's a utility agreement for Cook Meadow Hills Lift Station. Mr. Soren?
Thank you, President Johnson, Commissioners. This is a utility agreement with Rough Rider Electric to provide electricity for the lift station that is located in Cook Meadow Hills. There is a cost for the improvements to provide that electricity of $22,162.60. Because this lift station is solely being used by the development of Cook Meadow Hills, I spoke with Mike Cook regarding that fee. If the agreement is approved tonight by the commission, he will be bringing a check to the City of Dickinson for that fee to pay those costs to get that lift station up and running. This agreement is a standard agreement that Rough Rider does require now for services to be provided, and we would recommend approval of the agreement and payment be made as soon as we received the payment from the developer.
So you simply need a motion to approve this agreement for that
Yes.
amount?
Yes.
Okay. Would Commissioner care to move that motion?
I'll move.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Stuckert?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
President Johnson, City Commission, I believe you've all received a letter that have given to Mr. Kessel stating my intentions of my resignation as city engineer. Currently, I am looking at the 15th being the end date. I have spoken with Mr. Kessel regarding this and have told him that in no way do I want to just up and leave the city hanging, and would be willing to work with him in any way I can to work through the transition of moving forward with my replacement, whether that's, part-time or some contractual arrangements that we could work out to help with that transition. I do want to express my appreciation to the commission and other city staff that have supported me in my tenure with the city. This has probably been the most difficult decision that I've ever had to make, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soren. I don't think there's anybody at our table that would view this as good news. You're going to be missed.
I already offered him a job.
Don't make it easy for him to go, Mrs. Stuckert. Yeah, are there any other comments or questions?
I guess I have a question. Is it from being overworked?
Numerous issues, I guess. Certainly, the workload and the feeling that I can't satisfy everything. Potential health issues.
The word is stress. We'll miss you.
Well, we can say this later, Mr. President, but, Mr. Soren has always been the guy who has really brought, in my opinion, common sense to issues. Common sense and a really good practical approach. And in a way that is not panicked, it's calm, it's thought out, really thought out. And I know for one, I have always really appreciated that.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I don't think there's any question that engineering and planning are, if we said this was fighting a fire, this is the hottest spot on the fire, and they have to deal with the most heat. I don't think there's any question about that. But we talked about the meeting we had, the joint planning and zoning and city commission meeting we had this afternoon, and I don't remember the young engineer's name, but at the end of the meeting, he essentially said, even though there's a lot coming at you, your city is in good shape, that the things you need to do to handle this growth are still an option to you, still an alternative, still a choice. That he said, I've been in other situations, other cities where the good choices were taken off the table a long time ago. They weren't available. But they're still available to us, and that's because we've had good engineering and good planning, and maybe some good luck too. But there's no question, engineering and planning are at the heart of the storm. So, are there any issues by city commissioners?
I guess I have just one follow-up question for Mr. Soren. Moving forward and looking at your position, what would be some recommendations that you have to city manager, to the commission, as far as filling your position or recreating or dicing up some of the duties so that a stressful and such an important position to our community is one that we could fill, or would you be looking at two people to fill the job, or an engineer and an assistant engineer? What do you think moving forward would really help in your department?
You know, at this point, I don't want to specifically name those things. I will say that Mr. Kessel, myself, and Mrs. Nominuk have sat down, and we'll probably continue to do that, to look at the direction of the department and the things that I feel should maybe be considered or addressed, and try and work through some of those issues. I have given him that commitment from me to help him work through that until we can get to that. Obviously, you'll have to make those decisions as to how you want to go. Public Works has by far taken a beating on this, in my opinion. Being the manager of them, I've only been able to allow about 2 hours a week is all I've been able to give to those three departments, and it just isn't enough. It isn't fair to them. It isn't fair to the operations that they do, as important as they are to what we do. Most people don't see them until there's a problem with the lift station. I would say that's probably been one of the biggest disappointments I've had, taking on that role and not being able to provide assistance to that side.
Mr. President, Mr. Soren, I don't want to ask any more questions tonight, but I think it'd be a good opportunity for you and the city to have a very detailed, comprehensive exit interview with you. And personally, I want to say thanks for all the years, too. I believe it's been 12 years. I may have been on the committee that helped hire you, I believe.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. And I've never regretted it once. You've always done a good job, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner. Anybody else?
Mr. President, I meant to mention it earlier, but this, with the annexation that we did tonight, just need to make sure we keep the county up to speed on what's going on.
Okay, have we done that?
Yeah, President Johnson, Commissioner Jackson, on a regular basis, about every 2 months, I go before the city, or the county commission, and update them on annexations, and those which we anticipate will become annexations. So that is our effort, to try to keep those lines of communication open. I also meet with their auditor on a monthly basis and keep her abreast of changes as well.
Anything else? Anything else by city commissioners? I think you all know this. I will be absent at the next meeting, so we need at least 3 of you for a quorum. Is anybody else planning to be absent? Okay. Are there any public issues? Anyone from the public wish to address the commission? If so, you can come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.